At the heart of every creature beats an ancestral pulse, the urge to move. It is a journey dictated by survival, an exodus in search of water, food, or a sanctuary to give birth. By land, sea, and air, from the colossal giant to the most fragile insect, an odyssey of endurance unfolds. These are the great migrations, the most powerful heartbeat of a wild planet. As the Arctic sun begins to trace a lower arc on the horizon, painting the ice with golden, melancholic tones, a restlessness takes hold of the air. For most creatures, the twilight of the polar summer is a signal to prepare for the long, brutal night ahead. But for one of its inhabitants, it is the prelude to the most extraordinary odyssey on the planet. This is the domain of the Arctic tern, a fragile-looking seabird whose life is dictated by a relentless quest for light. With a body that weighs little more than a cell phone and a wingspan that seems too delicate for ocean winds, the Arctic tern is a marvel of biological engineering. Its plumage, crisp white and gray with a distinctive black cap, is the livery of a perpetual traveler. Its wings, long, narrow, and sharp, are not designed for explosive speed, but for almost inconceivable endurance, allowing it to dance with the air currents rather than fight against them. Driven by a genetic mandate perfected over millennia, it does not flee winter, but pursues summer. When the days in the north grow shorter, the tern takes to the skies, beginning a migration that will take it from one pole of the planet to the other. It does not fly in a straight line. Its journey is a masterpiece of navigation. Using the Earth's magnetic fields, the position of the sun, and patterns of polarized light invisible to the human eye, it charts a winding route over the world's vast oceans. This wandering path is not a mistake, but a brilliant strategy, a way to take advantage of prevailing global wind systems, allowing it to glide and coast, conserving precious energy over tens of thousands of miles. During its journey, the ocean is its restaurant. Without stopping on land, it hovers over the waves, its eyes fixed on the surface. When it spots a small fish or crustacean, it dives with surgical precision, emerging seconds later to continue its relentless flight. It is a life lived in the air, an existence suspended between two summers. Upon reaching the shores of Antarctica, just as the southern summer reaches its peak, it has not found a refuge, but the other half of its kingdom. Here, under the southern midnight sun, it feeds on an abundance of krill and fish, replenishing its strength for the return journey. Living in a state of almost perpetual sunlight, the Arctic tern experiences more hours of daylight than any other creature on Earth, a true child of the sun, whose home is not a place but a season. On the tidal flats and mangroves of the south, where the air is thick and life teems in the nutrient-rich mud, an unmistakable silhouette patrols the shore. It is the curlew, a wading bird defined by its most vital tool, an extraordinarily long downward curving bill. This is not a simple appendage, but a precision probe, a finely tuned instrument for exploring the hidden depths of sand and mud in search of crabs and worms. For months, its rhythm is methodical and predictable, dictated by the ebb and flow of the tide. But as the Earth's axis tilts subtly, even under the equatorial sun, an invisible force begins to take effect. An ancient pulse, an echo of countless generations, begins to beat stronger. It is an irresistible call that originates not from the surrounding landscape, but from deep within its physiology. The curlew becomes restless, its feeding periods becoming more frantic. It accumulates crucial grams of fat, the high-octane fuel that will power one of nature's most formidable endurance journeys. The moment arrives. Together with its flock, it rises into the air, emitting a tremulous, whistling call that is the soundtrack to its departure. They leave behind the warmth and abundance of their winter quarters to face a journey that defies imagination. Their route takes them over the open ocean, a flight of days and nights with no land in sight. At this altitude, the beak that sustains them on land is useless. Now everything depends on the power of their pointed wings and the efficiency of their metabolism. They navigate with astonishing certainty, reading lines of magnetic force and angles of sunlight, following an invisible map engraved in their being. They fly through weather fronts, enduring winds and rains that could divert any lesser traveler. Finally, after thousands of miles, they descend into a completely different world. The Arctic tundra, newly freed from the embrace of ice, welcomes them. The landscape is austere, windswept, and almost devoid of the exuberance they left behind. But here, in the explosive brevity of the Arctic summer, they find an even more valuable resource, a safe place to nest, and an overabundance of insects to feed their chicks. The arduous journey has served its purpose. The curlew has connected two disparate worlds, a global nomad whose existence is defined not by a single place, but by the incredible and dangerous path it traces between the hemispheres. In the vast, waterlogged tundras of Alaska, where summer is a fleeting explosion of life, an elite athlete prepares. It is the black-tailed Godwit, a bird that at first glance appears modest, with its long legs and exceptionally long, slightly upward curving beak. But beneath this unassuming appearance lies the protagonist of the most astonishing feat of endurance in the animal world. As daylight begins to wane, a biological urgency takes hold, triggering a radical internal transformation. The black-tailed Godwit indulges in a feeding frenzy known as hyperphagia, doubling its body weight in a matter of weeks. But the real miracle occurs inside. Organs not essential for flight, such as much of its digestive system, atrophy and shrink to minimize dead weight. Simultaneously, its pectoral muscles swell and its body fat becomes a high-density energy store. It is literally becoming a flying machine, a heart, lungs, and muscle with wings, designed for a single monumental purpose. When weather patterns are right, often waiting for a cyclone to pass so they can take advantage of its tailwinds, the flock takes to the sky. It is not a departure. It is an absolute commitment. Below them, there are no islands, no coastlines, no place to rest, only the blue emptiness of the Pacific Ocean. Here begins the longest and most arduous non-stop flight known in the animal kingdom. For more than 8 continuous days and nights, the black-tailed Godwit remains in the air. It crosses storm fronts, time zones, and thousands of miles of open ocean. It does not eat or drink, and its rest is limited to micronaps in which one part of its brain shuts down while the other keeps it on course. It is a feat of endurance that pushes the limits of what is biologically possible, a precise navigation of a world without landmarks. Its arrival on the coasts of New Zealand and Australia is a spectacle of pure exhaustion. They land not with elegance, but with the controlled collapse of exhaustion. They are flying skeletons, having consumed almost all their body mass, with plumage clinging to an emaciated body. Immediately their beak, useless during the journey, becomes their tool of salvation once again, probing the marshes rich in invertebrates. They have crossed the largest ocean on the planet to reach their land of plenty, not to breed but to survive, to recover and prepare for the incredible return journey. The black-tailed Godwit does not just migrate. It redefines the limits of endurance and embodies the absolute triumph of evolution over distance. In the heart of a shallow lagoon where water and sky merge into a sparkling horizon, a spectacle of nature unfolds. Thousands of flamingos form a sea of pink and coral that pulsates with life, a soundscape of constant soft squawks. Their world is defined by the ephemeral. They are creatures of saline and alkaline waters, delicate ecosystems that can appear and disappear with the seasons. Their extraordinary curved and highly specialized beak functions as an incredibly efficient filter, separating the tiny plankton and crustaceans that are their sustenance from the mud. Their iconic color is not vanity, it is a diary of their health and success, a direct reflection of the carotenoid pigments in their diet. A bright pink flamingo is a well-fed and thriving individual. But this paradise is fragile, its existence as fleeting as the rains that feed it. As the relentless sun evaporates their home, the water recedes and salt crystallizes on the shores like deadly frost. Food becomes scarce. It is not the cold that drives them away, as it does other migrants, but the silence of an ecosystem that is dying. An ancestral instinct, a collective restlessness, begins to spread through the colony. The mandate is not to escape winter, but to escape sterility. Takeoff is an act of mass cooperation. It begins with a long, splashing run across the water, wings flapping to gain speed until, almost reluctantly, they lift off the ground. One by one, the rest of the flock follows, and soon the air is filled with thousands of slender bodies. Against the dark canvas of the night sky, they become pink spears, their long necks stretched forward and their even longer legs extending backward, a silhouette unique in the bird world. They fly preferably at night, at high altitudes where the air is cooler and more stable, calling to each other constantly to maintain the cohesion of the group in the darkness. Their migration is not a straight line drawn on a map, but a wandering quest. They are nomads of the water, guided by the memory of generations and an amazing ability to detect suitable conditions from the air hundreds of kilometers away. They seek another lagoon, another salt flat, another temporary home that offers them the precise chemistry for life. Their journey is a gamble, a scattering across the landscape in search of the promise of water. Their life is a reflection of the world they inhabit, always in motion, always changing, a spectacular splash of color in search of the element that gives them life. In the final glow of a boreal summer, among the last flowers clinging to their color, a creature that seems made of light and air prepares for the impossible. It is the hummingbird, a living jewel whose heart beats more than 1,000 times per minute and whose wings beat so fast that they become invisible. Its life is a whirlwind of frenetic activity, a constant consumption of sugary nectar to fuel the fastest metabolism in the animal kingdom. For it, to stand still is to starve. However, as the days grow shorter and the nights grow colder, a signal more powerful than hunger is triggered in its tiny brain. An ancient call, a genetic imperative, commands it to leave its familiar gardens and embark on a journey that defies all logic and scale. It spends its last weeks in a state of compulsive feeding, doubling its body weight. It accumulates a tiny drop of fat, barely a gram, which will be the only fuel for a journey of thousands of kilometers. This transformation is a miracle of efficiency, turning its body into a perfect energy reserve. The journey begins alone. Unlike large flocks, the hummingbird faces its odyssey in almost complete solitude. It flies low, following routes engraved in its ancestral memory, often the same ones its parents followed. But its greatest challenge looms on the southern coast, the vast and daunting Gulf of Mexico. Here, it must perform a feat that seems pure fantasy, an uninterrupted flight of more than 800 kilometers over the open ocean. A journey that will take between 18 and 22 hours without a single opportunity to rest or feed. During this epic flight, their body becomes a biological engine pushed to its limits. They depend entirely on that single drop of fat, burning it with astonishing efficiency. They are a thumb-sized marathon runner, battling headwinds and the constant threat of exhaustion over the waves. Many do not make it, but the instinct that drives them is stronger than the danger. Upon touching land in the Yucatan Peninsula or Central America, it is on the verge of collapse, emaciated and exhausted. But it has arrived. It has connected two worlds, carrying in its fragile body the proof that endurance is not a matter of size, but of an indomitable spirit and a willingness to chase the sun across continents. In the vast plains of the Serengeti, the sun bakes the earth into a mosaic of dust and parched grass. The air vibrates, not only from the heat, but from a palpable tension, a restlessness that builds in the heart of one of the largest congregations of life on the planet. This is the domain of the wildebeest, a creature of almost prehistoric appearance, with its curved horns, shaggy mane, and a body that seems assembled from the parts of other animals. Individually, it seems clumsy. Collectively, it becomes a force of nature. The trigger for its journey is not the calendar, but the sky. The promise of distant rains, a smell of moisture in the wind that humans cannot detect, is the irresistible call. A primal instinct, honed over countless eons, ignites the spark. It begins not with a stampede, but with a hesitant movement. One individual, then a dozen, then 100, turn their heads in the same direction. A low, steady murmur grows into a chorus of guttural bellows. It is the sound of 1.5 million bodies preparing for exodus. The journey begins. The earth trembles under the impact of millions of hooves. The great wildebeest migration is not an orderly column, but a massive pulsating organism that flows across the landscape, devouring the savanna in its path. They move like a hive mind, a sea of skin and horns stretching to the horizon, following an invisible map engraved in their DNA. This is not a round trip. It is an endless cycle, a perpetual pilgrimage in search of green pastures and water, the two elements that dictate their existence. But the road is fraught with danger. Predators such as lions, hyenas, and cheetahs follow the herd, stalking the weak, the young, and the unwary. However, the greatest and most dramatic challenge is crossing rivers. Upon reaching the banks of the Mara River, the herd stops, a mass of pent-up anxiety. The pressure from those behind pushes them forward. Finally, one plunges into the water and the dam breaks. Thousands of them throw themselves into the current, a chaotic and desperate struggle for survival against the crocodile-infested waters and the force of the current. Many perish, but the survival of the herd depends on the sacrifice of individuals. Upon reaching the other shore, soaked and exhausted, they do not stop to rest. The march continues, because the promise of life, the fresh pastures that will sustain the next generation, is always one step ahead. Across the African savanna, where solitary acacia trees cast sharp shadows, moves a presence that is the embodiment of memory and ancestral power. It is the elephant. Its migration is not a frantic exodus like that of others, but a deliberate and solemn pilgrimage, a procession dictated by knowledge that transcends generations. They do not flee winter, for they do not know it. They flee thirst, the silent enemy that turns their vast home into a dusty desert. The journey is led by the matriarch, the oldest and wisest female. She is the living library of the herd. In the labyrinths of her mind lies a map of the land, not made of lines, but of memories. The location of every seasonal waterhole, every hidden fruit tree, every safe mountain pass. Her confidence is the anchor of the family, from the youngest calves walking in the shadow of their mothers to the young males who have not yet set out on their solitary journey. As the dry season tightens its grip on the land, the air thickens with dust and food becomes scarce. It is the matriarch's memory that sets the herd in motion. Their pace is slow but relentless, a rhythmic heavy walk that can cover dozens of miles a day. They communicate in a language of infrasound, low-frequency vibrations that rumble through the ground, keeping the family connected even when they are out of sight. They are gray ghosts gliding across the landscape, each step a leap of faith in the wisdom of their leader. The journey is a test of endurance. The sun beats down on their cracked leather backs, and predators, though rarely a threat to adults, constantly watch the young for a moment of weakness. The real threat is exhaustion and dehydration. The herd is entirely dependent on finding the oases that only the matriarch remembers. When they finally reach a winding river or a muddy waterhole, the relief is profound. The destination is not an end, but a pause, a respite in the eternal cycle. Here they will drink, bathe, and strengthen their bonds before the map in the matriarch's mind tells them it is time to move on again, continuing their endless walk through life, a journey where survival is inextricably linked to the power of memory. On the great canvas of the African savanna, where the dominant colors are the ochre of the dry earth and the fleeting green of life, a living mirage unfolds. It is the zebra. Its coat, a disruptive pattern of black and white stripes, is more than just decoration. It is a survival strategy, a visual signature that confuses predators and unites the herd in a dazzling, undulating tapestry. Its migration is a key piece in the great symphony of movement, often intertwined with that of the wildebeest, but with its own rhythm and purpose. Unlike their fellow travelers, the wildebeests, who pursue the tenderest and shortest shoots, the zebra is a pioneer. Their digestive system is adapted to process the tallest and roughest grass. They act as the vanguard of the great migration, mowing the toughest pastures and preparing the ground for the species that follow. They do not follow the blind instinct of the masses, but move in cohesive family clans, led by a watchful stallion, each family a unit of loyalty within the vast and anonymous horde. The impulse to move is the same elemental whisper that guides all pilgrims of the savanna: thirst and hunger. When the last trace of moisture leaves the ground and the grass turns to brittle straw, a restlessness takes hold of the family groups. The stallion raises his head, sniffing the wind for a promise of rain miles away. It is a collective decision, a tacit trust in the leader's experience and shared instinct. The journey begins and the landscape fills with hypnotic movement. The stripes of thousands of zebras merge into a stroboscopic spectacle, an optical illusion designed to disorient the lions and hyenas lurking on the margins. Their sound is not the guttural bellow of the wildebeest, but a series of high-pitched barks and whinnies, a constant communication that keeps family members together amid the chaos. They cross dusty plains and dangerous rivers, not with the frantic desperation of others, but with cautious determination. They are the striped heart of the migration, a tide of black and white contrast that advances relentlessly, painting the way to the green pastures that guarantee for another year the continuation of their lineage. In the hierarchy of the savannah, there are travelers driven by panic and pilgrims guided by memory. And then there is the African buffalo. Its movement is neither a flight nor a solemn procession. It is a show of strength, the advance of a legion. It does not move through the landscape, but imposes itself upon it. With its massive horns fused into an impenetrable shield of bone and a body that is the definition of concentrated power, the buffalo is not a simple herbivore. It is a living fortress. Its existence is anchored to one non-negotiable need: water. While other species can survive on moisture from plants, the buffalo must drink almost daily. Its migration is therefore a relentless cycle dictated by the tyranny of thirst. As the dry season scorches the earth and water holes shrink to bowls of thick mud, a tension runs through the immense herd. There is no hesitant decision. There is collective certainty. Led by the most experienced individuals, they set out, not as refugees, but as an army. The herd advances like an unstoppable black tide, a force of hundreds or thousands of individuals crushing the undergrowth beneath their hooves. Their method is not subtlety, it is direct momentum. They do not dodge obstacles, they plow through them. At the heart of this moving mass, the calves and females are protected, surrounded by a ring of massive bulls whose horns act as a wall of spears. This formation is their response to the constant threat of lions, their only natural predators. When a clan of lions dares to stalk them, the dynamic is unique on the savannah. The herd does not scatter in panic, it compacts. It turns to face the threat, becoming a phalanx of muscle and fury. Often, it is the buffalo that charge, a counter-offensive that lions respect and deeply fear. Their journey is not just a search for resources, it is a relentless patrolling of their domain, a declaration that the territory belongs to them. Upon reaching a river or flooded plain, the relief is tangible, but it is only a respite. Soon thirst will once again dictate their movements, and the great legion of buffalo will resume their march, an indomitable force united by brute strength and unbreakable solidarity. Unlike the great herds that roam the savannah in search of sustenance, the lion does not migrate. He is the destination. His movement is not an escape from the dry season, but an assertion of power, a relentless patrol that traces the boundaries of his kingdom in the dust. The lion does not follow the rain. He waits for the rain to bring his prey to him. His domain is a strategic chessboard, and his journey is the calculated move of a king surveying his holdings. The pride, the heart of lion society, moves with the tide of life that surrounds it. It follows the migrations of wildebeest and zebra, not as a participant, but as a predatory shadow. Its movement is a direct response to abundance, a slow and deliberate shift within its territory to position itself where the hunt is most promising. It is a procession led by the lionesses, the expert hunters, and the family nucleus, while the male or coalition of dominant males patrol the boundaries, leaving their scent and roar as a declaration of ownership. That roar, which travels miles through the night, is not a call to travel. It is a sonic fence, a warning to all intruders. But on the margins of these kingdoms, there is another kind of lion journey, that of exile. These are the young males, expelled from their own pride by the dominant males to avoid competition. These nomads, often brothers who form coalitions to survive, embark on the most dangerous odyssey of their lives. Their movement is indeed a migration, but not in search of grass, but of a throne. They wander through no man's land, corridors of fear and opportunity between hostile territories. They are emaciated, covered in scars and constantly on alert. Every foreign roar in the night is not a communication, it is a death threat. Their journey is a relentless search for weakness, a herd whose king is aging or wounded. They spend months or even years in this wandering purgatory, learning to hunt for themselves and fight as a unit. Their final destination is not a green plain, but a violent confrontation, a battle for control of a herd that is not their own. If they win, the journey ends. They become kings, and their first act will often be to kill the cubs of the deposed leader to ensure their own lineage. It is a brutal cycle where movement is measured not in distance, but in power. The lion's true journey is not across geography, but across blood and conquest, a saga that ensures only the strongest will rule the savannah. In the icy, nutrient-rich waters of the poles, where summer is an explosion of microscopic life, a giant indulges in a feast. It is the humpback whale, a 40-ton leviathan that, in this frozen world, is a predator of astonishing efficiency. Using one of nature's most sophisticated hunting strategies, the bubble net, a group of whales cooperates to create an ascending curtain of air that traps schools of krill and small fish, allowing them to rise amid their prey with their jaws open. For months, their only mission is this: to eat. They accumulate a layer of fat of monumental proportions, an energy reserve that will soon be everything. Because an internal biological clock, synchronized with the planet's tilt, gives them an inescapable command. They must leave the richest pantry in the world and embark on one of the longest and most arduous migrations in the animal kingdom. They leave abundance behind for a reason that defies the logic of immediate survival: love and birth. Driven by an instinct burned into their DNA, they begin a journey of thousands of miles to the warm, crystal-clear waters of the tropics. This journey is a pilgrimage through a blue desert. For months, the humpback whale fasts, relying entirely on the fat reserves it accumulated at the poles. It navigates invisible ocean highways, guided by the Earth's magnetic fields and an ancestral memory of the seabed. Its journey is not silent. As they approach their destination, the males begin to sing their famous song, a complex, melancholic composition of haunting beauty that can last for hours and travel hundreds of kilometers underwater. It is the prelude to the rituals to come. Upon reaching the tropical sanctuary, the purpose of this incredible effort is revealed. These warm, nutrient-poor waters offer safety. They are a cradle. Here, the females give birth to their 1-ton calves, gently pushing them to the surface for their first breath of air. Meanwhile, the males compete for the right to mate, their courtship a display of acrobatic prowess. Spectacular leaps that lift their entire bodies out of the water, fin and tail slaps that echo like cannon fire. Amidst this commotion, the mother fasts, transforming her own fat into milk for her calf, consuming herself so that the new generation can grow strong, preparing it for the long journey back to the frozen paradise that awaits. The life of the humpback is an eternal cycle between feast and famine, an odyssey that links the ends of the planet in a monumental act of survival and creation. In the stillness of a moonlit beach, an ancient force stirs the sand. It is not the wind or the tide, but the beginning of one of the most extraordinary odysseys on the planet. Tiny sea turtle hatchlings, guided by a primal instinct, break their shells and emerge en masse. Their first act in the world is a frantic race for survival, a life-or-death journey across a few meters of sand toward the glimmer of the waves, dodging the ghostly predators of the night. For the few that make it, the ocean offers not a refuge, but the beginning of a journey that will last a lifetime. Once in the water, the most enigmatic phase of their existence begins: the lost years. The young turtle becomes a solitary nomad, swept along by the great ocean currents, drifting for years across the vast blue. It is a life of solitude, a seemingly aimless pilgrimage through a world without borders, slowly growing into the majestic armored navigator it is destined to be. It is a survivor of the age of dinosaurs, a creature whose lineage has witnessed the drift of continents. After decades, when it reaches maturity in its distant feeding grounds, thousands of miles away, an inescapable and mysterious impulse takes hold of it. It is the call of home, but its home is not a concept. It is a place of astonishing precision, the very beach where it was born. To find it, the sea turtle displays one of the most incredible feats of navigation in the natural world. It is not guided by the stars, but by the invisible lines of force of the planet itself. It senses the Earth's magnetic field, using its intensity and angle as a compass and map, heading toward the unique magnetic signature of her place of origin, an echo engraved in her brain since birth. The return journey is a test of endurance. Upon arrival, the female embarks on the most arduous part of her mission. She leaves the weightlessness of the water, her element of grace, to drag her heavy body across the sand, vulnerable and clumsy. With methodical determination, she digs a nest with her hind flippers and, in a trance-like state, lays her eggs, often shedding salty tears to expel excess salt from her body. Having fulfilled her ancestral duty, she covers the nest, erases her tracks, and returns to the sea exhausted. She will never know her offspring. Her life is not a linear migration, but a sacred circle closed by instinct. A journey that does not seek a new home, but the exact memory of her origin, ensuring that on that same beach, a new generation will resume the eternal cycle. The map is passed on. The promise is fulfilled. At the end of each odyssey, a new generation is already preparing to answer the same ancestral call. For as long as the world turns, the greatest force of nature will not be the arrival, but the eternal journey.